What's the crack? My name's Kieran, this is Spearhead, the metal art channel where we dive into the darker side of graphic design and illustration. So for today's tutorial we're going to jump right into an absolutely nasty looking death metal style merch design. This is for a good buddy of mine, Leo, in a class band from Holland called Adversary. Me and Leo used to tour back in the day in our old bands, and I get on with this lad like a house on fire, so I really wanted to hit this out of the park for him. So to go all out with this one, we went for the logo on the front and a huge back print with a Cerberus three-headed dog like bursting out of some barbed wire, with the lyrics of the title track wrapped around it in a really iconic looking hardcore style. These guys aren't just straight up death metal, they're more old school with a lot of hardcore flavours in there, so I wanted to play on that with the visual elements we're going to throw into this design. Just listen to this. We're going to use some savage assets from the one and only NEOSTOCK. We're going to build up our image with these assets, and then we're going to put it through the wringer, absolutely destroy it with texturing. We're also going to use one of my fonts that I made. It's called SHN down below, and it is down below in the description, so you can get that for free. Give me now a like and subscribe. So I'm not going to burn the ear off you much longer. We're just going to get right into Photoshop and make some whopper designs. Right, so here we are, we're in Photoshop and we're starting with an artboard that's A3. That's 4961 by 3508 at 300 dpi. We're going to need that 300 dpi so it's a nice high quality print. So I'm going to start by getting this nice barbed wire asset that I got off Free Pick, I believe. And then I'm going to maybe put in a little background here of a few bricks and play around with the black and white and maybe invert it and stuff and see how it looks. I've changed our artboard to black because it's going to be a black hoodie. Put an inner shadow on the internal part of our barbed wire frame here, and I'm just kind of using that to break up the background and the frame itself. Now I've got these unbelievable assets from NEOSTOCK. Link is in the description. Some of the stuff you'll find on there is like a heavy metal designer's dream. Can't recommend them enough. I've been banging them out in most of my designs. So here we've got this really cool 3D model of like a werewolf type dude. And it's so evil looking and pure nasty that I couldn't help but use it for this one. Here I'm throwing a central figure in the middle of the frame, and then I'm kind of playing with 3 different heads. As you can see, I'm chopping and changing as I go, but I want the central head looking dead on, and then having one head to the right and one head to the left. This is going to be Cerberus, you know, the guardian of the Greek underworld. You want him to be looking absolutely terrifying because he's a big elemental like monster that fights off gods and people creeping into the underworld. So we want this lad to look just as nasty. As you can see now, I'm kind of like playing with some sort of 3D things. Like I'm keeping my heads on different layers here, and I'm just making selections of my barbed wire frame as I go, and I'm kind of brushing bits out and letting the head pop over different parts to make it seem like he's in the frame and bursting out. Once I was happy with the composition of the 3 heads and how they're sitting, I merged them all together and I make them black and white. You can make a layer that you have selected black and white by pressing Ctrl, Shift, Alt and B all at the same time, and it'll automatically make a B and W. And as you can see, it looks quite nice. So I've duplicated my wolf layer and I've inverted the layer below and nudged it up just about 10 pixels to give it like a sort of bit of a glow on the edge, or make it seem like there's a bit of lighting to kind of highlight the individual individual hairs, I guess. So I've cut out these 2 paws and I have the claws bursting out of the frame. I use my free lasso tool to kind of roughly chop them out of the individual assets that I thought would work, and I'm dropping them in over our frame layer so it seems like, you know, he's like grabbing it out of the frame. I've used a really soft eraser just to blend them into the body of the Cerberus behind the frame himself. You know, I'm kind of trying to make it look like he's trying to rip his way out of this barbed wire. And to do that, I'm just kind of playing around with a bit of liquify, a bit of warping. I'm doing the same thing then, making them black and white, duplicating the layers and then inverting the original layers and nudging them up about like 10 pixels just for that extra sort of highlight. It looks a bit kind of iffy here at the moment, but we're gonna like cover these with chains and textures and blood drops and these collars as well, just to kind of make it look like there's loads going on. Now I got these collars on Envato Elements and they were just like 3D models that I could kind of play around with and nudge them different ways and stuff. But again, this is super rough. We're just gonna like whack this out, so I'm kind of loosely putting it on to make it seem like these are kind of like bound, you know, they're held in the underworld. Just kind of like firing them around each of the 3 heads. Nothing too stressful here, just really loosely firing them in because a lot of this is going to be covered with like filthy grit texture and blood splats, and all the other trimmers are going to fire in. This was more so just to kind of busy up the design, if you get me, and make it seem like there's a little bit more going on. I'm just loosely going in with my eraser and nudging things here and there with our warp tool, and maybe giving things a liquefy pass as well to try make it seem like they're fitted onto the next of these monsters. And again, just to cover up some of our background and some of the front chest part of the Cerberus, I'm whacking in these chains. I got these off Envato Elements, very handy stuff on there. And you guessed it, I'm making these black and white, and then I'm duplicating them, inverting the layer below, and I'm nudging them up about 10 pixels here and there, just, you know, to give it that sort of like glinty glow sort of vibe. Here I'm firing in my spearhead blood texture and I'm whacking it over the top, making that black, and then I'm using multiply as my blend mode to make it seem like this monster is soaked in the blood of its victims. Again, I'm taking my spearhead grit, which you can get in the description in the assets folder below. I'm basically duplicating this multiple times, so it's covering all of the parts of our figure. Then I'm inverting it into white. I'm doing the same, kind of nudging it around, moving it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to merge both of these textures onto one layer, both our black and our white texture. Then we've merged our entire monster design, saving as you go, always save as you go. Merged our entire monster design onto one layer. I'm making a selection of that monster, inverting the selection, then selecting our grit layer and deleting everything that doesn't cover the design itself. Now I've made a detailing layer and I'm taking like a nasty gritty brush. I believe this might actually have just been a round brush, but I usually use the True Grit Texture Supply stipple brushes. They're unbelievable time savers. And as you can see, I'm scribbling kind of nastily over the top. I am elongating the fangs here to make them look ridiculous. I'm taking out teeth here and there. I'm putting in like extra frowns and scalds on the face. You know, all these details are really kind of rough and ready, but you'll see in the finished article that it just looks so cool. It's that proper like 90s style. And I'm going over the claws and the details on the hands, and I'm putting in drips, and I'm putting in just like horrible filth and stuff and accentuating different details to give it a little bit more depth. But nothing here is like really hard to do. Like I'm very loosely throwing these in, and it gives the photo bash design then that like really nice kind of like illustrated element that our texturing and different processes that we're going to throw in after will really add to. There you can see I'm using our True Grit Stipple Studio brush to kind of add in more depth and stippling in the shadows to give it a little bit more kind of like madness going on. And when I was happy with how evil this Cerberus lad was looking, I was like, okay, I'm just going to leave this here before I start any of the texturing. And what we're going to do is we're going to throw the text on. So I want this text wrapping around this image here, and to do that we'll just use our shape tool and we'll make a circle. You will make a true circle by holding shift. We're going to place this around the frame of the design. Then we're going to go into our top left corner there, and we're going to make sure that we have this made into a path rather than a shape. Once we have it made into a path, you'll click on the top center of the circle and you can start typing out your word. I was thinking about putting none will mourn when none are left on the top and the bottom, but then I was thinking, actually, do you know what? I can't remember what I saw. It was like some hardcore merch design that I can't think of, but it just had the text wrapping around in a continuous circle, and I was like, do you know what? That's actually going to look really nice, and it could work really well for this. So I opted to go for that. I just made sure that none will mourn starting where you would like naturally read it. Then I just really played with the spacing and made sure I had everything kind of like nicely balanced. Again, I am saving pretty much the whole time here. I've got multiple different files of multiple different names in multiple different stages of the design. So if you ever want to go back and change something, you know, you haven't like merged stuff. I'm real messy and fast when I design. I like things really rough and ready, and I make destructive edits pretty much all the time. Now we're on to the texturing. I merged everything onto the one layer, whacked the contrast up, and then what I've done is taken our color dropper and I've made a selection of only the black. Then I delete all the black. Then I just put like a nice hard monochromatic noise on it and kind of play around with it, making it bigger and smaller to see like if I can like distress it and mess it up. You could use like a nice displacement map for something like this. It's probably a much easier and quicker way to do it. So then once I was happy with that, what I did was I just started putting in different strokes here and there, and I still felt like it was a little bit kind of lacking in the detail department. So I just got some nice PNGs on Envato, I believe, of smashed glass or like bullets going through glass. I overlaid them over our image and then I duplicated them. And remember what I did at the start where I inverted the layer below and nudged it up about 10 pixels? I did that again, but this time so it's the black is below the white, and I nudged it down about 10 pixels, thrown in a little bit more stippling detail. And then I've used a soft eraser just to kind of like take a lot of the smashed glass away from the point of interest. In this case, like the point of interest are these eyes of the Cerberus and the face of the Cerberus, so I didn't want anything obscure in that, so I just kind of loosely brushed the cracks of glass off the faces of the Cerberus himself. Now I'm giving it like a little liquify pass here just to kind of like tuck in some of the claws and stuff to make it look extra 3D, like it's really like gripping onto the wire there, and so it wasn't obscuring too much of the lettering. So I've done the same there. I'm making sure our N and our N are lining up perfectly, and I've used the liquefy pass to kind of like push in the ears a bit, the like tufts of fur there, to make sure they weren't really obscuring too much of the monster himself. Now once I was kind of happy with my detailing, I done the same thing and just deleted our black because we want this to be super deep in the shadows. And I've decided that I want some of the dogs to be bursting over the lettering and some to be above the lettering. And yeah, that was pretty much it. We're done and dusted with it, and I'm thinking like that is looking pretty badass, and it's going to look even nicer when it's screen printed, because when things are screen printed like this, you know, all these little stippling details and stuff that we fired in manually and with like noise and stuff will blend together and look even nicer. And now for some extra content that you might find useful, we're just going to whip up some real nice mock-ups here with these. These are fairly basic mock-ups, but what you're going to do is like you're going to go into your smart object here and just click on the design. It'll be highlighted in purple there, and then you can like lay your artwork on the front and the back, and it'll pretty much do everything for you. You know, you're not really going to have to like mess around too much here. This is a logo that I'd made previously for the band, and we wanted to use that in the front, so I separated a little bit and just made a selection of the hard parts of the letters and made them red and kept the drips and all, you know, nice and white, because we want the drips to be nice and clear on the black hoodie. So then I've gone into the mock-up here, and again we've whacked it into the little purple layer there. You just double click. Once you've laid it nicely on the hoodie itself, you just press Ctrl and S to save it, and then you can X out of that window. And when you go back to your main mock-up, it's going to be like nicely set on the front of the design and the back of the design, and you're not going to need to play with like your blend modes or anything like that. It's so handy. Now to bounce this out to the client, you know, some people like to put mock-ups in different kind of display pieces. In this case, I used one of my Spearhead assets, which is a scan of a nice like plastic record sleeve. I thought it looked really nice. I put some like halftone texture in below it. Now I've laid them nicely over it. I just kind of flipped it around, got it nice and balanced. I've used one of my fonts, SHM The Storm, to just put Spearhead X Adversary. Some people like to do this, you know, especially if you're going to be putting it on your social media and you want it to be like a nice little bit of promo as well for yourself. Now I've thrown my Spearhead logo on the bottom corner, and I've just inverted it to black. I've put like an internal red stroke on it, and that just gives it that extra little bit of class, so it really looks the business. And when you send it on to the client, they're going to be blown away because it just looks so damn cool. And yeah, with that I think we're done. How cool does that look? So come on, let's go over here and have a little chat about it now. Right, so I don't know about you guys, but I love merch like that. I'd happily wear that every day. I love the old school vibe of it. I love how gritty and filthy it is. I love the concept and the content. So as always, I hope that was both enlightening and entertaining, and yeah, I hope you got a little bit of a spark there and want to go attempt to make something like this yourself. As always, if you've got any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. I'll be more than happy to help you out. And don't forget, I've got the free assets folder in the description. Go grab that stuff and make some unreal art. Go on, you're more than capable. You can make amazing stuff, and when you do, send it over to me on Instagram. I'd love to have a look. And if you're looking for some cool new gear, you can check out the store on the Spearhead website. Got some of these babies in stock and they fit like a dream. So as always, thanks a mil. I hope you enjoyed it. Big love, you're a bunch of legends, and I'll see yous all in the next one.